The rain hammered down like God's own fury, turning the cracked sidewalk into a river that swallowed my sneakers whole. I pounded on the dorm door for the 10th time, my fist raw and my heart sinking as the lock mocked me with its unyielding silence. My key, that traitorous piece of metal, had snapped clean off inside it 2 blocks back. And then, from the shadows of the neighboring porch, a voice cut through the storm. "Hey kid! Looks like you need a lifeline more than an umbrella." I remember the exact moment the world tilted on its axis, because that's when Ethan Harper stepped into the downpour, his old pickup truck idling like a faithful dog behind him, headlights slicing through the sheets of rain. He was drenched in seconds, that flannel shirt clinging to his broad shoulders, but he grinned like we'd been old pals forever, holding out a spare key he'd fished from his pocket. Turns out, the dorm super owed him a favor from some long-ago plumbing war. "Hop in," he said, not asking, just knowing. And as I slid into the cab smelling of pine and fresh-cut grass, I realized the stranger had just saved more than my night. He'd cracked open a door to something I didn't even know I was starving for. That was the night the storm outside paled in comparison to the one brewing inside me. A college freshman lost in the maze of Michigan's endless winters and my own unspoken secrets. Ann Arbor in late October is a beast. Crimson leaves bleeding into gray skies, the Huron River swelling like it wants to drag you under, and I'd come here chasing dreams of literature and freedom, only to find myself locked out in every way that mattered. My name's Alex Rivera, 20 years old, with a backpack full of dog-eared Kerouac and a heart full of questions I wasn't ready to voice. Growing up in a sleepy suburb outside Chicago, I'd always been the quiet kid sketching sunsets in the margins of my notebooks, the one who blushed at the wrong kind of glance in the high school locker room. Gay? Yeah, I'd whispered it to my reflection once or twice, but saying it out loud felt like inviting lightning to strike. Ethan, though, he was lightning personified. 42, with laugh lines etched deep from years of squinting at horizons. He ran Harper's Landscaping, turning backyards into Edens for half the professors on campus. His dad, old Mr. Harper, owned the creaky Victorian next door to my dorm, a place sagging under ivy and memories, where Ethan had grown up before hightailing it to the Marines and then back home to bury his father last spring. I'd seen him around, mowing lawns in cut-off jeans, that easy swagger turning heads he pretended not to notice. But up close in the truck's cab, he was magnetic. Rough hands on the wheel, scarred from thorns and time, and eyes the color of Lake Michigan on a calm day, pulling you in like undertow. We didn't talk much on the drive to his place. He insisted on getting me dry before dropping me back. Can't have you catching pneumonia on my watch. But the silence hummed with possibility. His house was a stone's throw from campus, a modest rancher with a wraparound porch piled high with rusted tools and half-finished birdhouses. Inside, it smelled of coffee and cedar, walls lined with faded photos. Ethan in desert fatigues, grinning beside buddies who'd never come home. A younger him, arms slung around his dad at a Tigers game, both in matching blue jerseys. He tossed me a towel and a hoodie, his oversized and soft as a secret, and brewed mugs of something strong while the rain drummed a lullaby on the roof. "You got a name, lockout artist?" he asked, settling into the sagging couch, knees brushing mine in the small space. "Alex," I managed, my voice smaller than I intended. "Thanks for everything. I feel like such an idiot." He chuckled, low and warm, like gravel under tires. "Idiots are my specialty. Fixed the super's leaky roof last month. Figured he'd owe me one day." His gaze lingered, not prying, just seeing. "What brings a city boy like you to this frozen tundra? Chasing ghosts in those books you're always hauling around." I blinked, caught off guard. "How'd you? Seen you sprinting to class, nose in a novel. Reminds me of my kid brother before." He trailed off, sipping his coffee, the steam curling like unspoken grief. Turns out, Ethan had a son, Jake, 19 and off at community college in Toledo, studying auto mechanics because the kid's got oil in his veins, not ink like you. But Jake wasn't there that night. It was just us, two souls adrift in a storm, trading stories like lifelines. By midnight, the rain had eased to a drizzle and I'd spilled more than I'd planned. The pressure cooker of my conservative family back home, Dad's endless sermons on manly pursuits, Mom's worried glances when I dodged the prom talk. Ethan listened without judgment, his nods steady as heartbeats. "World's full of locks, Alex," he said finally, voice roughened by the hour. "Some you break, some you pick, and some you just wait for the right key." His hand found my shoulder then, a brief squeeze that sent sparks racing down my spine. Not pushy, just present. And I wondered if he felt the current too. He drove me back at dawn, the sky bruising purple over the dorm's spires. "Doors always open," he said, scribbling his number on a scrap of receipt. "For locks or whatever else." I watched his truck fade into the mist, my chest tight with an ache I couldn't name, and as I finally tumbled into bed, keyless but unlocked in ways I hadn't imagined, I knew one thing for sure. Ethan Harper had just rewritten my map. The days blurred into a rhythm after that, an arbor's crisp fall air sharpening everything. The crunch of leaves underfoot, the steam from my morning latte at Zingerman's, the way my pulse jumped whenever I spotted Ethan's truck parked curbside. I threw myself into classes, dissecting Hemingway in lit seminars and pretending my essays on lost souls weren't veiled confessions. But Ethan lingered like a half-read chapter, his number burning a hole in my phone until I caved and texted a simple "coffee sometime?" "Oh, you 1 inch" on a Tuesday that felt like fate. He showed up at the Union the next afternoon, flannel swapped for a Henley that hugged his frame just right, carrying 2 to-go cups and a grin that lit the dim cafe like sunlight. We talked for hours about the Marines, sand in places you didn't know sand could go, his failed marriage to Jake's mom. She wanted white pickets. I wanted wide-open roads. The quiet ache of burying his dad alone. Ethan was a storyteller, weaving tales of cross-country hauls in his 20s, chasing sunsets from the cab of a semi, only to circle back to this town that held his roots like stubborn weeds. "You're easy to talk to," I admitted over cooling lattes, my cheeks warm under his steady gaze. "Like you've seen enough storms not to fear the rain." He leaned back, fingers drumming the table. "Storms pass, Alex. It's the calm after that tests you." There was a weight there, a shadow in his eyes, but he chased it away with a question about my sketches. Turns out he'd peeked into my backpack that first night. I pulled out my notebook, pages filled with charcoal strokes of gnarled oaks and fleeting faces, and watched his callous thumb trace the lines, lingering on a portrait I'd drawn from memory. Him silhouetted against the truck's glow. "Damn," he murmured. "You see the world like it's poetry." From there, it snowballed, innocent at first, me helping him load mulch in his yard for extra cash, him showing up with apple cider donuts after my midterms. We'd end up on his porch as dusk fell, fire pit crackling, stars pricking the velvet sky while he strummed an old guitar, voice gravelly on Springsteen covers that made my heart ache with borrowed longing. Thunder Road became our anthem, him singing about trading a fast car for a one-way ticket home, me harmonizing softly, our shoulders brushing in the firelight. But beneath the ease, tension coiled like frost on window panes. I'd catch him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking, intense, almost hungry, and I'd wonder if it was wishful thinking or the start of something reckless. I was green as spring grass, my experiences limited to awkward fumbles at freshman orientation parties, always pulling back before the truth spilled out. Ethan? He carried the weight of a life lived loud, loves lost and lessons carved deep. One night, after too many beers around the pit, he confessed the divorce had cracked him open. She said I looked at men the way I should have looked at her. Hell, maybe she was right. My breath caught, the words hanging like smoke. And, "Do you?" He met my eyes, firelight dancing in his. "Some days, yeah. But it's complicated, kid. Jake's world, my worlds. They don't always line up." He didn't elaborate, but the air thickened, charged with what-ifs. I wanted to bridge the gap, to say I saw him. Not the landscaper, not the widower, but the man who fixed broken things with steady hands. Instead, I clinked my bottle against his. Complicated's my middle name. Winter crept in then, blanketing campus in white, turning the Huron to a frozen ribbon. Holidays loomed like storm clouds. I was headed home to Chicago, dreading the annual grilling from Dad about prospects and settling down. Ethan sensed it, dropping me at the Greyhound with a thermos of his famous chili, for the road poet, and a hug that lingered a beat too long, his stubble grazing my temple. "Come back in one piece," he said, voice low. I've got plans for that guitar lesson. Chicago was the usual torture. Forced smiles at family dinners, mom's passive probes about dating, any nice girls in your lit club, dad's booming lectures on legacy over turkey. But in stolen moments, I'd scroll through texts from Ethan, photos of fresh snow on his birdhouses, a voice note of him butchering Wonderwall, with a laugh that thawed me from the inside. Jake called once, too, on speaker from Ethan's phone. A cocky 19-year-old with his dad's drawl, ribbing me about stealing dad's porch time. I laughed it off, but it planted a seed of normalcy, of fitting into this patchwork family I hadn't earned. New Year's Eve, I bolted back early, train rattling through midnight fields, heart pounding with resolutions unspoken. Ethan's truck was buried under drifts when I trudged up his drive, fairy lights twinkling from the eaves like he'd waited. He yanked open the door, snowflakes melting in his hair, and pulled me into a bear hug that smelled of pine and possibility. Missed you, Alex. We rang in the year with champagne stolen from a campus party. Sprawled on his living room rug, countdown flickering on an ancient TV. As Auld Lang Syne swelled, he turned to me, cup halfway to his lips. Here's to keys that fit, he toasted. And when our glasses clinked, his free hand found mine, fingers lacing like they'd always known the way. That kiss, when it came, was inevitable as the thaw. Slow, tentative, tasting of cider and courage. His lips were chapped from the wind, but warm, insistent, drawing me under like the river's current. I melted into it, hands fisting his shirt, the world narrowing to the press of his chest, the soft rumble in his throat. It wasn't fireworks. It was foundations shifting, quiet and profound. Two men finding harbor in the storm. But as we broke apart, breathless and beaming, Ethan's phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from Jake. Headed home early, Dad. Surprise. Be there by dawn. The bubble burst. Reality crashed in like a nor'easter. Jake's innocent excitement a reminder of lines we couldn't cross lightly. Ethan pulled back, regret etching his features. Shit, it's not simple. I know, I whispered, but the words tasted like ash. We cleaned up in silence, the kiss hanging between us like a promise deferred. And as he walked me to the door, snow swirling anew, he cupped my face. Worth the wait, though, right? I nodded, stealing one last brush of lips before vanishing into the night, dorm lights winking like distant stars. Back in my room, I traced the ghost of his touch, wondering if love was a lock we'd picked too soon, or the key to everything. Spring unfurled like a secret kept too long, cherry blossoms dusting campus paths in pink confetti, the air humming with renewal. Ethan and I danced around the edges of what we'd started, stolen glances over fences, late-night calls where his voice dropped to murmurs that curled through the phone like smoke. We were careful, achingly so. Jake was back for weekends, crashing on the couch with tales of carburetors and campus crushes, oblivious to the undercurrent. I'd wave from the yard, playing the friendly neighbor, while inside, my sketchbook filled with half-finished portraits of Ethan, eyes shadowed with want, hands that built worlds. One Saturday, Jake roped me into a pickup game at the intramural fields, his easy camaraderie pulling me in despite the nerves. He was spit and image of a young Ethan. Lanky build filling out with muscle, that same crooked smile disarming crowds. Dad says you're the artsy type, he teased, tossing me the ball. Bet you can't outrun a gearhead. We laughed through laps, mud splattering our jeans, and by halftime he was spilling about his own secrets. A girl back in Toledo who gets him, but doubts if he gets himself. Life's weird, huh? 1 minute you're fixing engines. Next you're questioning the whole damn road. His words echoed too close to home, and I nodded, throat tight. Ethan watched from the bleachers, arms crossed, pride warring with something fiercer in his gaze. After over burgers at Blimpie Burger, the three of us bantered like we'd always been this, a makeshift trio, grease-slick fingers and inside jokes. But under the table, Ethan's boot nudged mine, a Morse code of patience, and I felt the pull sharpen, dangerous and sweet. The betrayal came on a whim of a Wednesday, unannounced as a summer squall. I'd been grinding through finals, caffeine my only companion, when my phone lit up with a campus alert. Power outage campus-wide. exams postponed. Relief flooded me, and without thinking, I texted Ethan, "Storm's gift? Beer on my porch?" His reply was instant. "Hell yes. Jake's out till late." We met under the arbor, bottles sweating in the heat, fireflies winking like conspirators. Conversation flowed easy. My looming internship at the Michigan Daily, his bid on a big landscaping contract for the Arboretum, until dusk deepened, and he set his beer aside. "Alex," he said, voice gravel rough, "this waiting, it's killing me." I crossed the space in 2 heartbeats, our kiss hungrier this time, months of restraint unraveling like frayed rope. His hands roamed my back, mapping scars I hadn't shared, while mine tangled in his hair, pulling him closer. We tumbled onto the porch swing, world fading to the creak of chains and our shared breaths. Clothes askew but boundaries held. Tender explorations, not conquests, whispers of slow and yes guiding us like stars. That's when headlights pierced the twilight. Jake's beat-up Civic, pulling up early from a study group. We sprang apart, hearts hammering, but it was too late. The swing's groan had carried, and as Jake unfolded from the car, his face shifted from surprise to something shattered. "Dad? Alex? What the hell?" Ethan stood first, hands raised like parley. "Son, it's not. Save it." Jake's voice cracked, eyes darting between us, betrayal blooming raw. He'd pieced it together in an instant. The texts, the porches, the way his dad lit up around the neighbor kid. "You're with him? My age? Jesus, Dad, I'm supposed to look up to you, not this." The words landed like punches. Jake storming off to the house, door slamming echo through the night. Ethan followed, leaving me adrift on the swing, shame coiling cold in my gut. I'd known the risks, but seeing it fracture a father-son bond? That cut deepest. Hours later, a knock rattled my door. Ethan, hollow-eyed, flannel rumpled. He took off, packed a bag, said he's crashing with a buddy in Ipsy. Won't pick up. We sat on my narrow bed, the dorm's thin walls amplifying our silence. I should have told him sooner, protected him from us. "No," I said fiercely, gripping his hand. "This isn't on you. On us. Jake's hurt, yeah, but running? That's fear talking." We talked till dawn, dissecting the wreckage. Ethan's guilt over a youth spent hiding, Jake's confusion mirroring my own at that age, the fragile bridge of trust now splintered. "I love you," Ethan blurted into the gray light, the words tumbling out unplanned. Not kid stuff, real, scary real. My chest cracked open. "I love you too," terrified, but, yeah. We held on, plotting a path forward. Space for Jake to breathe, honesty as our compass. But as Ethan left, kissing my forehead like a vow, I wondered if love could mend what blood couldn't. The fallout rippled. Jake ghosted us for days, then weeks. Sporadic texts to Ethan like, "Need space." Each one a knife twist. I buried myself in newsroom shifts, typing op-eds on identity that bled too true, while Ethan threw himself into work, yard after yard blooming under his hands like defiant hope. We met in stolen slivers, coffee runs, walks along the diagram where students milled oblivious, our fingers brushing in crowds. One evening, as lilacs perfumed the air, Jake showed up unannounced at Ethan's, duffel slung over his shoulder. I watched from my window, heart in my throat, as they faced off on the porch, voices rising, then falling, raw with the kind of love that bruises before it binds. Jake emerged alone, spotting me across the way. "Hey!" he called, voice steadier than I'd feared. "Can we talk?" We ended up at Angelo's, corner booth sticky with syrup ghosts, nursing cokes like olive branches. "I freaked," he admitted, stirring his straw to oblivion. "Dad's my hero, you know? Marines, single dad, all that. Seeing him with you flipped everything. Made me question my own shit." I nodded, throat tight. "I get it. First time I admitted I liked guys. Felt like betraying the whole world." He eyed me, curiosity edging out the hurt. "Yeah? So this, you and Dad, it's real. Real as it gets." I hesitated, then added, "He's lucky to have you, Jake. Blood's thicker, but it doesn't mean we can't expand the circle. He mulled it, then cracked a half-smile. Ethan's smile. You're all right, Alex. Just go easy on him. He's tougher than he looks. But hearts? That's his soft spot. By summer's cusp, the thaw held. Jake stuck around. The three of us grilling in the yard, stories overlapping like roots. Betrayal's scar lingered, a faint line, but forgiveness watered it green. Ethan and I, we built slow. Picnics by the river, his hand in mine under quilted skies, love deepening like roots in good soil. An arbor stretched before us, a canvas of second chances, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the blank page. Summer hit like a freight train, humidity thick as grief, turning the town into a steam bath where even the lake breeze offered no quarter. I'd scored that internship at the Daily, churning out features on everything from arboretum blooms to queer-lit festivals. My byline, a quiet rebellion against the kid who'd once hidden his sketches. Ethan thrived too, his contract blooming into a crew of apprentices, including Jake on brakes. Father and son side by side, trowels flashing in sync, mending more than earth. Our rhythm solidified, mornings with him dropping coffee at my desk, fuel for the wordsmith. Evenings tangled on his couch, my head on his chest, his fingers carding through my hair as we dissected the day's chaos. Love, I learned, wasn't the blaze of that first kiss but the steady burn. Him bandaging a paper cut with exaggerated fuss, me reading aloud from my drafts till he dozed, snoring soft against my shoulder. We talked futures, tentative sketches. Me postgrad in a newsroom somewhere big, him expanding the business, Jake maybe joining full-time. A Harper Rivera empire, he'd joke, but his eyes held the blueprint serious. Yet shadows lurked as they do in idols. Ethan's ex, Lisa, blew in like a gale mid-July. Jake's birthday barbecue, uninvited but inevitable, her SUV crunching gravel with entitlement. She was polished Chicago, yoga-toned and sharp-tongued, sweeping in with a cake from some fancy patisserie and hugs that lingered accusatory. Ethan, you look rugged, she said, eyeing his dirt-streaked jeans. Then me with a flick that said volumes. And who's this? The new help. I stiffened, but Ethan slid an arm around my waist, casual as claiming territory. Alex, my partner. The word landed like a gauntlet, Lisa's smile fracturing porcelain. Jake hovered, torn. His mom's rare visits a minefield of old wounds. Her what about us? Please masking custody wars long settled. Dinner crackled tense, small talk sparking like dry brush. Lisa probing my aspirations, Ethan deflecting with tales of the crew's latest triumph. But as dusk fell, she cornered him by the grill, voice slicing low. A boy, Ethan? After everything? Jake deserves stability, not this phase. I overheard from the porch shadows, gut twisting, betrayal anew. Not from blood but from ghosts. Ethan shut her down, voice steel. This is me, Lisa. Past time you accepted it. She left in a huff, tires spitting. But the venom seeped, Jake withdrawing into sullen silences that echoed his earlier storm. The real fracture came weeks later, a client dinner gone sideways. Ethan had landed a plum gig, revamping the president's garden at the university, and we celebrated at a downtown bistro, candlelight gilding his laugh. Midway through steak, his phone vibrated. Jake. Frantic. Dad accident. Shop in Toledo. He's okay, but come now. We raced south. My hand clamped on his knee as highways blurred. The shop was a wreck. Forklift toppled. Jake's arm gashed deep, blood soaking his coveralls. Turns out he'd been pushing overtime, covering for a buddy, when the rig slipped. Ethan was a rock, bundling him into the ER. But I saw the crack. Fear of losing another piece of his world. The Marine in him barking orders to mask the dad unraveling. We camped in the waiting room, stale coffee burning my throat. Ethan pacing like a caged wolf. Can't lose him, Alex. Not like. He didn't finish, his father, his comrades, the ghosts piling high. Jake emerged stitched and sheepish. Morphine mellow. Dumbass move, huh? But hey, free tetanus shot. Back north, recovery bound us tighter. Me fetching comics and shakes. Ethan playing nurse with gruff tenderness. One night, Jake cornered me in the kitchen, sling awkward on his arm. Mom called, said you're corrupting Dad. That true? I laughed. Bitter. Corrupting? Nah, just loving him. The way he deserves. He studied me, then nodded slow. Yeah, I see it now. He's happier. Lighter. Don't screw it up. Okay? Promise. We clinked root beers, a pack sealed. But climax brewed in August's heat. A storm of secrets bursting. I'd been pitching a series on hidden histories, queer icons in Michigan lore. For the Daily, my editor thrilled. Research led me to dusty archives. Yellowed letters from a Marine who'd loved fiercely across lines. Echoes of Ethan's unspoken past. I shared snippets over dinner, his face paling as I read aloud. In foxholes we found truth's bullets couldn't kill. Stop. His fork clattered, eyes stormy. You don't know what you're digging up. Pressed, gentle. Tell me. All of it. He did, voice fracturing. The barracks nights in '03. A sergeant named Riley. Stolen touches, coded glances, a bond forged in sand. Ended in tragedy. Riley lost to an IED. Ethan burying the grief under duty. Emerging scarred. Came home. Married Lisa to prove I could straighten up. Jake was the best lie I ever told myself. Tears tracked his cheeks, and I held him through it. Our love a balm on old wounds. You're not lying anymore, I whispered. Not to him, not to us. Emboldened, he called Jake next morning. Full disclosure, no filters. I loved a man once, son. Love one now. It's who I am. Jake listened, silent. Then, new parts, glad for the rest. Love you, Dad. Relief flooded, but fate twisted cruel. That night, a call from Lisa. Hysterical, Jake rear-ended on his way back south, airlifted to trauma. We flew to his side. Ethan white-knuckled in the chopper, me gripping his hand like anchor. Jake pulled through. Concussion, fractures. But in the haze of morphine, he confessed, Mom, she tampered. Brake line to scare you off the phase. Said it'd bring you back. Betrayal's zenith. Lisa, unhinged by loss of control, willing to risk her son to reclaim a ghost. Police came, statements given, her world crumbling under charges. Ethan raged, then wept, holding Jake's hand through the beeps. Family's choice, not force, he murmured. I stood sentinel, heart aching for the fractures we'd all endured. As leaves turned, Jake mended. Physically swift, emotionally layered. Lisa faced trial, her apologies hollow echoes. We rebuilt. Therapy circles for the three of us, Ethan and Jake fishing the Huron, me tagging along with notebooks. Love deepened, humanistic in its mess. Forgiveness not erasure, but weaving scars into strength. Autumn waned into winter's prelude, and arbor spires frosted like gingerbread. The air crisp with promise of holidays reclaimed. Jake's recovery was a miracle of modern grit, PT sessions turning limps to strides. His shop job waiting with open arms. He'd forgiven Lisa in fragments, visits supervised and sparse, her penitence a work in progress. People break, he told me over cider at the fair, lights twinkling overhead, but they can glue back stronger, like kintsugi, right? Gold in the cracks. I smiled, clapping his shoulder. Our bond forged in fire, brotherly now. Ethan watched us, eyes soft with gratitude. The weight he'd carried lightening by degrees. Our love, too, evolved. No longer deferred, but deliberate, mornings tangled in his sheets, sunlight slanting through blinds as he traced my spine with lazy fingers. Evenings at the Daily's holiday party, his hand warm at my low back, introducing me as the one who keeps me honest. Whispers followed, curious glances, but in our bubble, they were just wind. Yet the humanistic core pulsed deeper. Ethan's crew ballooned, hiring vets down on luck, turning lawns into legacies. I profiled them in the paper, green thumbs, second chances. Ink immortalizing stories like Marco's, a Gulf vet with PTSD tamed by tulips. Jake jumped in, mentoring a kid fresh from juvie, his own scars teaching empathy. Me, graduation loomed, offers from Chicago Trib and Detroit Free Press. But an arbor tugged, Ethan's porch, the river's bend, a life rooted here. Conflict crested New Year's, echoes of our first. Jake, arm healed and spirit mended, insisted on a redo. Fire pit roaring, just us three, no X's or ambulances. We toasted with bourbon, flames dancing shadows on faces healed. To family, Ethan said, voice thick, pulling us both into a hug that smelled of smoke and home. But as embers died, Jake dropped the bomb. Got accepted to U of M transfer. Starting fall. Figured. Closer's better. His grin was sheepish, eyes on Ethan, permission sought, granted in a bear hug that left me grinning too. Room for one more at the table, I added, and Jake nodded, the circle complete. Spring bloom triumphant. My thesis defense a blur of applause. Ethan's proud whistle cutting through. Post-ceremony, we escaped to the arboretum. His handiwork, paths winding through his planted wonders. Under a canopy of dogwoods, petals raining soft, he dropped to one knee. Not ring, but a key to his house, etched with home. Not asking yet, he said, eyes shining, but building. With you. Tears pricked. I pulled him up, kissing him fierce under the pink storm. Yes, to all of it. Summer sealed it. Jake's move-in chaotic, boxes of tools and textbooks cluttering the spare room. Lisa's trial ended merciful. Plea, probation, a letter to Ethan read in chambers. I lost us chasing phantoms. Be happy. For Jake. For you. He burned it in the pit. Ashes to wind. Closure in cinders. Our climax? A quiet August dawn. Wedding not vows but a road trip. Ethan's truck loaded. Jake shotgun. Me navigating cross-country. We chased sunsets from Kerouac's pages, stopping at diners for pie and poetry, bonding over campfires where stories swapped like stars. Betrayal's ghosts faded, replaced by laughter's echo. Back in Ann Arbor, fall's gold welcomed us, the Victorian sagging less under shared weight. I took the free press gig, commuting easy. Ethan expanded, Jake apprenticed full. Love? It was the garden we tended. Storms weathered, roots entwined, blooms defiant. Years later, at Jake's wedding, him to a mechanic with a laugh like thunder, we'd stand proud, Ethan's arm around me, our rings simple gold from a vow under those same dogwoods. Told you, he'd whisper, keys that fit, and in the humanism of it all, the betrayals mended, conflicts forged to strength. I knew. We'd locked out the dark, letting light flood every room. An arbor, our anchor. Each other, our horizon. Forever unlocked.